Let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. Since the election, we have created 2.4 million new jobs. Unemployment claims have hit a 45-year low. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. Small business confidence is at an all-time high. The stock market has smashed one record after another. 401k, retirement pension, and college savings accounts have gone through the roof. And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
Welcome to Hannity, and we are in Washington, D.C. again tonight. The sewer, the swamp, whatever you want to call it. Those were some of the highlights from President Trump's rousing first State of the Union address, where he highlighted many of his accomplishments, of course, the booming economy, foreign policy, and so much more. Now, the president was also laying out his plans for immigration, infrastructure. We're going to have reaction and analysis to that historic speech throughout the hour. Now, Donald Trump Jr. and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen will join us right here on the set. But first, tonight's breaking news, opening monologue. We're glad you're with us. All right, we begin tonight with President Trump's very powerful and historic first State of the Union address. Now, he touched on several key themes: American culture, referencing the flag and standing for a national anthem. He also touted the massive economic growth that has happened in just a little over a year, and, of course, businesses creating jobs, record low unemployment, and, of course, rising wages. The president declared a new American moment and that there has never been a better time to start living the American dream. The president also listed how he's fulfilling very key conservative principles tonight by appointing conservative justices and judges, honoring and helping vets, energy independence. And one of the best lines of the night that stood out for me, the president said the era of economic surrender is over. Now, it's best when the president can push aside the bias filter of the liberal mainstream media like he did tonight and speak directly to you, the American people. It was so obvious during many moments in the speech tonight that the Democrats, they'll never give this president a fighting shot. But his list of accomplishments, they do speak for themselves. After 8 years of failure and a year of solid record success, you would think that the Never Trump crowd, the Hate Trump crowd, that they would appreciate America's now moving in the right direction. People are getting back to work, off of food stamps. The economy's growing. Now, tonight is the night that the president, he was able to bypass everyone and go right to the American people, make his case that his programs, that his policies, that his principles are working, and that we, the American people, we are rising up in the world. And you would think this would be a moment people would celebrate. Not about the media, not about the Democrats sitting on their hands, often looking like fools, not about the hatred of the president, not about liberal conspiracy theories or obstruction. It has really become a battle for the vision of the America that you want. This, to me, is a fork-in-the-road moment, and that's pretty much what tonight was all about. So ask yourself this. When was the last time the media ever talked or even mentions the president's numerous accomplishments in just 1 year? Now, your answer is probably never. And since the media ignores everything the president has been able to do, well, we decided to do their job for them. Take a look at the side of your screen. We'll run it throughout the night tonight. The president's accomplishments in 1 year. The economy is booming. We have record low unemployment numbers. Regulations are being gutted. ISIS defeated. The individual mandate repealed. We are finally on the path to energy independence, and that means millions of high-paying career jobs for Americans, and America is now back leading on the world stage. Now, this has been an epic first year for the Trump administration, and more importantly, an epic year for the American people, the forgotten men and women that Martha was just talking about. And that's with Democrats that have resisted every second of every day, obstructed at every single turn. And, of course, never Trumpers, establishment Republicans in Congress that have held back the Trump agenda. Yet the media that worship Barack Obama, defended his terrible failed policies for 8 years, they're not willing to give this president a break or credit for anything. And they have been so abusively biased, something we've never seen in American history. The media seemingly wants the president to fail. They're actively rooting for it, which is why speeches like tonight help the president explain his vision for this country without the spin, without the smears from the liberal media. We have a lot to get to tonight. Joining us now with reaction, President Trump's first State of the Union address. His son, Donald Trump Jr. You were in the gallery.
I was.
I got to be. You're not feeling well. You've had this bad flu that everybody had. You feeling better?
We keep working. Doesn't matter.
You're a Trump. You keep working, right? I watched, and look, I'm a conservative, and I talked to a lot of friends during the speech tonight. This is the speech that conservatives have wanted to hear since Reagan. More people independently telling me that than any other comment I got tonight.
Listen, I think it was phenomenal. I mean, and you could see it, not just from the Republicans. I mean, I got a leg workout just standing up every 5 seconds because he hit every point. But watching the Democrats was actually where I noticed it, because you could see them all wanting to stand, Sean. You could see them all almost looking around like, we almost have to stand for this, but the derangement is real.
No,
right? They have to do the opposite. They've been forced to take the opposite approach of everything that he does, everything that he says. So even things that are just common sense solutions for the American people, they have to do the opposite. And you could see it. It was amazing to watch.
If you have record low unemployment, and if you break it down demographically, record low unemployment for Black America, for Hispanic America, for women, a 17-year low. You have economic growth and success. How do you sit down and not want to cheer that, considering there's been a lot of suffering the last 8 years?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. And, again, I think those are things that people see when they see thousands of dollars going back into their wallets, when they see billions being repatriated to this country, that money being infused into the economy. And it wasn't all that long ago when Nancy Pelosi was touting a $40 tax rebate, right? But thousands of dollars in bonuses, thousands of dollars being paid to American workers.
Crumbs.
Are crumbs.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I didn't realize inflation was that bad. In 4 years, things changed. So, seeing that, this was a unifying speech. It was a speech to all Americans. He hit everyone deeply. And it was amazing to watch. It was amazing to see it firsthand.
When you think of 2.4 million jobs, 200,000 in the manufacturing sector alone, you think of 2 million Americans off of food stamps. That was one of the big issues. I remember one of the first interviews I did with you. You called your dad a blue-collar Republican.
I called him a blue-collar billionaire.
I'm sorry,
probably.
Blue-collar billionaire. You probably
and it's true, and I used to get criticized for it.
You
but you could see it. I mean, he gets those people. And you know why he gets those people, Sean? Because, like you, that's where he spent his time building his business. He didn't become a great builder in an office. He became a great builder by being on job sites, being around the men and women who built those projects, talking with them, not at them.
It was one of the best things I ever, and I know you've done the same thing in the course of your life, working in restaurants, being a dishwasher, a cook, a bartender, busboy, waiter, and then building houses, framing, roofing, tile, painting. It changed my life. And honestly, those are the Americans that have suffered.
Correct. They are the forgotten Americans, and he's giving them hope. He's always been able to speak to them. I mean, hey, I get it. He's an unlikely person to be able to breach those boundaries, right? The billionaire from New York City being the guy, the voice of the blue-collar American, but he can do it, and he does it genuinely. And now they took a chance. They voted for him, and now they're seeing the results, and it's amazing to watch.
People try to ask me about your dad because I've always been and remain today a Reagan conservative.
Yes.
And I keep arguing with people. I'm not a nationalist. I'm not a populist. I am a conservative. I'm still a Reagan conservative. I look through the list of accomplishments. We'll put it back up on the screen. A list of principles that, from judges to immigration to energy independence. These are all important issues. And that's what has happened in a year. The Heritage Foundation actually said,
I know,
was more conservative than Reagan.
I saw that, and more successful by the numbers than Reagan, which, by the way, for them, they weren't exactly always the biggest fan, right? So for them to come around and say, wait a minute, this is working. You see the Republicans do it. Hey, last week you saw it. It's the first time. The Republicans didn't just fold. I mean, the Republicans have a history of being amazing at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, right? That's their specialty. That's their superpower. But now they have someone who will fight for them, someone who will back them up and go to the wall. I mean, that's what's been incredible. And so now that they see that, I think their spirit is invigorated. And by the way, more importantly, the voters who voted for them, who entrusted my father with this incredible responsibility, they see it too.
Let's talk about the distractions. Your father, all the accomplishments had to be achieved in an environment of, I would argue, historically unprecedented hatred, vitriol, conspiracy theories, lies. You yourself have been, by the way, I thought I was tough on Twitter at one point. I can't compare to you or your dad.
Well, listen, when you've gone through what we've gone through, the amazing thing is, though, the media, the left, they went so all in on this conspiracy theory because they couldn't figure it out. How could this guy do this to our anointed one, our chosen one, with 1/10 the money, 1/10 the staff? They did it because they were actually speaking to real Americans. So they couldn't. So they needed these things to be true. They went all in with their credibility for this nonsense to be true. Now, what's amazing for me, without evidence, without anything, but what's been so amazing for me, despite 25 hours of congressional testimony, millions in legal fees, hey, the only thing that they found out was that they themselves were the ones doing all of these things. And I really hope for all of that stuff to come out, because imagine what he could do, given what he's accomplished in the last year. Imagine what he can do without this fictitious baggage. Imagine what he could do if he was just unleashed to actually fight without all of those distractions.
I say this often, and I spent a lot of time. It was about a year ago when we first reported on this program with John Solomon and Sarah Carter that, in fact, Trump Tower had been, there was a warrant, a FISA warrant. There had been spying going on. Now we learn a lot of the background. Imagine if your dad fixed the primary, had it rigged against 16 other people. Imagine if James Comey and other FBI agents rigged an investigation, exonerated your father before actually investigating. Imagine if your dad did paper Russian propaganda through a dossier, and imagine that dossier was used as a foundation for a warrant against Hillary. Let's reverse roles here. What would you can't even fathom.
You can't. I mean, if you heard about this stuff going on in Angola, you'd say, "Wow, that's terrible."
Yeah.
But it's happening in our backyard.
Scary.
This isn't a banana republic. I mean, this is the United States of America, and for this to be going on at that level, and again, I think we have to make the distinction, because you heard it tonight. My father is fighting for the guys in law enforcement and all of those agencies, but the boots, not the suits that are the lawyers at the top. They're not the same. Okay, I was at the floor of the SHOT Show last week, right? And I had 15, no less than 15, FBI agents, both active and retired, come tell your father to keep going, because those guys on the 7th floor, they're tarnishing my badge, the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into for decades.
Wow.
So they get
the same remarks.
They get that he's still fighting for law enforcement, for the military, all the things that he promised. But there's a difference between those boots and those suits at the top. Those suits, what we're seeing, the corruption is real. And when you look at it, what other conclusion can we draw? That this was the prior administration effectively weaponizing the DOJ and the FBI.
One of the things that he said tonight that really stood out to me is, for example, people have different diseases. Maybe they've been given a death sentence.
Yes.
And we have government bureaucracy that prevents people from making choices. Maybe they want the right to experiment with a drug that we're told is promised.
What do you have to lose?
Nothing. But the government, those people behind me over there in the freezing cold, they don't care.
No, they want any chance at life, and we should be giving it to them.
Give it to them.
Give it to them.
It's your life.
It would encourage medical development.
Right.
It's not always going to work. Okay, it's not. But when it does, think of how fast we can expedite those things, getting other people those same medications. By the way, he used the example, for me, I relate to it best as a builder, right? The road example. We built the Empire State Building in a year. Now it takes 10 years to get a permit to build a little county road. 10 years to get a permit just to start.
It's true.
Let alone actually building it. Those are the things, those are the regulations that he's cutting, the nonsense, the layers and layers and layers of government bureaucracy. We don't need them. No. This country got to where it is without all of that.
It was one of the amazing statistics, and I always pride myself on giving out a lot of statistics. I don't know if you've heard a few of them.
Once or twice.
But when he said that they eliminated more burdensome regulation than every other president combined.
In 1 year.
In a year.
In 1 year. He's done more than entire administrations.
But isn't that what really... Look, government has gotten so big, so bureaucratic. Between that and him taking on the culture and talking about the flag and talking about the anthem and challenging the NFL on... But I think what he's done, I think one of the reasons he's such a fierce opposition, he's bringing that business acumen. He's trying to wipe away all the
100%.
clutter so that we can build up the country. But they love that culture.
Well, that culture has made them rich. It's made their friends very rich. They go on to become lobbyists. That's why the Beltway is the richest place in America, on the backs of the American worker. And yet, this area hasn't created anything. They don't build anything. They don't manufacture anything. They don't create anything. They peddle influence.
It's scary.
That's what's happened. And so he's giving that back to the people. He's allowing them to create. He's allowing them to use their money. The other side, I mean, you see, they don't want you to have your own money.
Why didn't you go with your father? I remember asking you that at the time.
You know, I don't know. I can do more on the side. You know, I'm still always going to be active. I'm always going to be very vocal.
Of all the kids, I think you have the same temperament as him.
Maybe that's why we don't want to be in the same room together. That personality may not always work. But, you know, I'm just as an American and as a father of 5 young kids, I'm so proud to be able to watch what he's doing, because I want to make sure that they grow up in an America that I grew up in. And they can experience those same freedoms. When you look at the attacks on so much, I mean, today when I'm looking at some of the Democrats, you know, they don't stand up for God, okay? Reluctant to stand up for the flag. They don't even think about standing up for the anthem. I'm watching it in this room, and I'm saying, I can't even believe.
People are going to say, he's saying it.
Oh, I know. Sorry, two of them didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, the vast majority, you can see reluctantly, oh, God, I got to do it because otherwise I may get some heat. I mean, that's not what this country is about. And he's taken that culture on, and he's hit them hard.
But that's the swamp.
It is.
That's the sewer.
And that's why you need someone from the outside.
I'm sorry you're sick. Glad you could make it anyway. And always good to see you. We appreciate you being with us.
Good to be with you.
All right. We got to take a break. And when we come back, Newt Gingrich, DHS Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen will be with us. She'll react to the president's first State of the Union address as we continue in the freezing cold in Washington, D.C.
This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
All right, that was the president earlier tonight. Here with reaction to this important moment is Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen. Let's talk specifically about the immigration proposals. Give us some detail.
Sure. So I think what the president laid out is a very clear vision for how to increase security on our borders while also revising immigration. And part of the borders, as you know, Sean, is not just infrastructure, but it's the technology, it's the personnel, and it's closing the loopholes so that we can detain and remove those who come here illegally. I think the president was clear. He asked for bipartisan support, and it was really a unifying moment, I think, on some important issues.
Secretary, I've been down to the border a dozen times. I've been from the Rio Grande to San Diego. I've seen drug warehouses. I've seen gang members. I've been in helicopters, boats, all-terrain vehicle. You can laugh at me on horseback. I've seen all of this. And we always end up getting the consideration, the amnesty, going back to '86. We never, ever get the wall funded and built. Is this going to be different this time? Will the president insist on the money that he controls to build the border before any deal?
We have to have the wall. We have to have the wall. Walls work. We've seen it in Yuma. We've seen it in San Diego. And the funding, he's been clear. So in the proposal he offered last week, it's a $25 billion fund, which will include not only that infrastructure, but technology for the southern and the northern border, as well as some of the personnel costs and access roads that we need. But yes, I think he's made it very clear this is a priority. Our border, as you know, Sean, is more secure than it has been in the past. However, the numbers continue to increase. We had a 300% increase in unaccompanied minors in the last 6 months. We also had a 600% increase in family units. So when we talked a lot, President talked a lot about gangs tonight. So I think it's it's time to do it. He's very committed. I'm committed. I'll work with anyone and everyone who will talk to me about this.
Madam Secretary, I've seen it all firsthand, and I think it is definitely, in terms of national security, one of our, if not the #1 priority we have. I suspect when Chuck Schumer pulled his offer off the table, and then listening to other Democrats, it sounds to me politically they don't want a deal. They don't want DACA. They want to run on DACA in 2018. So for all their sanctimony, I suspect politically they have very different motives. And then you've got liberal Republicans like Lindsey Graham and Senator Snowflake. I'm sorry, Jeff Flake. I call him Snowflake. Out in Arizona, it seems like they just want amnesty.
Well, you know, Sean, it's disappointing because, as you know, Senator Schumer voted for the wall. Many of our Democratic colleagues have voted for the wall. So this is politics. And I think what you heard from the president tonight is enough of that. It was a unifying message. It was a call across the aisle. It was a call across both houses of Congress. And it was a call to action. It's time to do it. We need to increase the security for our communities. And it's time to reform an immigration system that's on autopilot and does not in any way help improve our economy.
Do you suspect, as I do, that there's politics being played by the Democrats? In other words, I question their sincerity of whether or not they want this deal because, as the president said tonight, this is a compromise deal. This is, okay, you get what you want and we'll get what we ran on.
No, I think it is a compromise. He listened to members from both parties, as did I. And all I can tell you with respect to that is we're committed. We're negotiating good faith. I've been on the Hill many, many times over the past few weeks. I've talked to hundreds of members of Congress. I'll continue to do that. I've been to the border myself, talked to the state and local officials down there, as well as landowners and Americans who live there and see the threat coming across the border. So we're negotiating good faith. We'll continue to do that. I hope that they will agree to do the same.
All right, Madam Secretary, good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, and joining us with more reaction to the president's first State of the Union address is the author of the best-selling book, Vengeance, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, you sat behind presidents for, what, 5 years during State of the Union addresses, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched this president tonight, and I thought it was probably by far the best speech he ever gave.
Well, I think it was certainly the best speech he gave, but I think it also rivaled Reagan at his very best. No one has ever taken the guests who were there and woven their personal story into general principles about America, as well as Trump did tonight. I'm actually trying to build a list, because I wasn't fast enough during the speech, of how many specific reforms he's proposing, many of which the Democrats are going to have a very hard time opposing. And I think that it was a very effective, very powerful speech. And I think it built on what he did the other day in Davos. Yeah. And it puts him, I think, in a very strong position. I mean, if they will stay focused on these messages and not let the elite media drag them off into junk, I think in a week or two he will have a huge impact on the country. But as you know, it takes constant repetition for it to sink in. But there's a tremendous amount in this speech.
You know, I know the media's been fixated on one subject and one subject only for a year. But when you look at the accomplishments, I'll put them up on the screen again, and we'll roll the success, everything on foreign policy, from ISIS and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, conservative justices, energy independence, jobs created, the number of people dependent on food stamps reduced. And that doesn't even include the tax cut, which is going to result in the significant dollars in the pockets of many Americans.
Well, and I think you're beginning to see the effect of all of this. I thought one of the strangest moments of the evening was when the president announced correctly that black and Latino unemployment was the lowest it had been in history, and nobody in the Democratic Party in those two caucuses could bring themselves to vote. I mean, to applaud. And you're watching it on TV and you're thinking, let me get this straight. You dislike the president so much that when your community now has the lowest unemployment in history, you can't applaud it? And it just tells you a little bit about how bitter and how deep some of the partisanship is. But I also think that the president outlined a program for the next year that's practical. I think people are going to be very interested in, and I don't know what his program is going to be, but they're going to be very interested in his effort to lower the cost of drugs. They're going to be very interested, I think, in this idea that you have a right to try if you have a fatal disease, that the government should not block you from having access to trying to survive. I think that that's actually going to have very strong bipartisan support. His announcement, I don't know if you saw the look in the Congress, but when he announced a $1.5 trillion infrastructure program, which is not all government money. Again, this is Donald Trump, the entrepreneur, and they have some ideas for how you enlist a lot of different sources of revenue to get to $1.5 trillion. But that's a big enough infrastructure program that even most of the Democrats at about that point in the speech began to sit up and take notice. And so, how would a
private-public partnership on infrastructure work, sir?
Well, I mean, one way would be to have companies put up money and actually take over and run things. I mean, in Britain, if you go through Heathrow Airport, it is a private firm. If you look at Canada, the air traffic control is private. There have been highways built in, for example, Indiana that were private, where the company put up the money, ran it as a toll road, which is actually how the first U.S. highways were built way back in the late 18th century. I mean, we once had a tradition that many people build roads, and they charged you a fee to use them, and it was true almost everywhere in the country at one time.
Mr. Speaker, you're the great historian, and I'm looking at a disruptor that won the presidency, and after 8 years, I would say classify as an abject failure. We have had a year's worth of really significant success. And I think one of the keys to the success of the speech tonight was rooted in the fact that the policies, the principles, the positions the president has taken is working. Where do you see this disruptor following conservative principles, going from here in spite of all the hostility that's been shown him?
Well, first of all, I see him bonding more and more with the American people, and I see him reaching out in ways that becomes very difficult. I predict the Democrats this spring will split into two parties. There will be the national left-wing radical party, and there will be people who want to survive and who come from districts where there's going to be a lot of common sense. And you're going to see, I think, a steady erosion as people look up because of the points you just made. We're a very practical people. One of the reasons Obama failed is Obama didn't fail in the end because he didn't give great speeches. He didn't fail because he didn't have great language. He failed because his policies were a disaster. And they were a disaster in the personal lives of normal Americans. And if Trump is a success in the personal lives of normal Americans, his ability to get things done is going to keep going up.
And you have talked a lot about, I remember during the campaign you said he's either going to grow or he's not going to win. How would you judge his growth, considering his miraculous rise in politics from outside the world of politics? How would you judge the trajectory of growth in that year?
Well, he won't agree with me, but I would say the first 6 to 8 months he was really just learning the job. And in fact, he said this today in a brief comment, I think, to the news media. He said, I had to learn that some of the things that are totally right when you're a businessman aren't enough when you're a public leader. And I think that's been a big part of it. I think, in a funny way, the failure to get Obamacare through was a very painful, excruciating moment, but it taught him to listen much more carefully. And he got the tax bill through. I'm not sure they'd have gotten the tax bill through if they hadn't had the experience of how hard it is to get the Congress to do things. And I see him grow. I think every week he grows a little bit. You look at his role in the world. You look at his reach talking to foreign leaders, the kind of relationships he's building with people like Macron of France and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. I mean, this is a guy who people wondered, could he do foreign policy? Well, yeah, he's going to do it just fine. Yeah, but more importantly, from America's standpoint, he has a gut feeling for America and a gut feeling for what works that may be better than any president in my lifetime. And that's beginning to really make a difference.
in the lives of a lot of Americans. Forgotten men and women, they were the ones that made the difference in November 2016. We appreciate your time. When we come back, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Dan Bongino. As we continue from our nation's capital, it's Hannity. We're glad you're with us.
Here tonight are two fathers and two mothers, Evelyn Rodriguez, Freddie Cuevas, Elizabeth Alvarado, and Robert Mickens. Their two teenage daughters, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, were close friends on Long Island. These two precious girls were brutally murdered while walking together in their hometown. 6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and Nisa's murders. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying for you. Everyone in America is grieving for you. I want you to know that 320 million hearts are right now breaking for you. We love you. Thank you.
Very, very sad, touching moment tonight. The president taking time to recognize family members of 2 girls brutally murdered by the gang MS-13. By the way, where I live in Long Island, New York. Here with reaction, Senator Ted Cruz of the great state of Texas. Senator, good to see you. Let's get your reaction overall to the president tonight.
Well, I thought that moment you just played was one of the most powerful moments of the entire speech. I think the president did an incredible job highlighting the parents of those who lost their children to MS-13 and violent illegal aliens, highlighting heroes, whether police officers or Coast Guardsmen or first responders across the country. And I think the president did a tremendous job overall focusing on jobs, on wages going up, on the historic tax cut. I thought it was a very, very strong speech and a strong night for the president.
The president I know, has counted on you a lot, and you guys have forged a very strong relationship. And to me, everyone talks nationalism, populism. I'm a Reagan conservative. I see this agenda as conservative. Your thoughts?
I very much agree with that. You know, it is stunning the successes we had in 2017 delivering on our promises, whether it was an historic tax cut, cutting taxes on job creators, cutting taxes on working men and women across this country, whether it's regulatory reform, reducing job-killing regulations, whether it's repealing the Obamacare individual mandate or confirming a record number of constitutionalist judges. We have delivered on the promises we made. I think the president did a terrific job highlighting that. And, Sean, I got to say it was stunning to watch Washington Democrats sit there stone-faced and refuse to applaud more jobs, higher wages, jobs coming back to America, refuse to applaud wins for the working men and women of this country. That was really sad.
Almost embarrassing. It was embarrassing at times, you know, when you're giving out statistics. Where are you on this immigration proposal? We always get the spending increase. We never get the tax cut. We always get the amnesty, the consideration. We never get the wall.
You're exactly right. 3 of the planks are very strong. Border security, ending the visa lottery, ending chain migration. All of those I strongly agree with. I do not believe it is right to be granting a path to citizenship to 2 million people here illegally. We shouldn't be granting amnesty or a path to citizenship to anyone here illegally. And I think that'd be a real mistake. It's not consistent with what we promised the American people. So I hope that Congress doesn't do it.
Well, you got a couple of liberal senators. I won't drag you into a fight, but you know who I'm talking about. That they want that. Republican senators.
It makes no sense, and our focus should be on the working men and women of this country, giving a path to citizenship to those here illegally. I got to point out, Sean, that's a position way to the left of Obama. Obama in DACA didn't grant a path to citizenship, and it was about 600,000 people. It wasn't 2 million. I don't know why Republicans are falling all over themselves to get to the left of Obama on this. That's a mistake.
I know a senator from Arizona and one from South Carolina. You can have that conversation with. Senator Cruz, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Good luck in your reelection. I'm sure you're going to win in Texas. We need you back there. Also tonight, the president had tough words for the rogue regime in North Korea. Let's take a look.
No regime has oppressed its own citizens more totally or brutally than the cruel dictatorship in North Korea. North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland. We are waging a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from ever happening.
Here with reaction, former deputy assistant to the president, Fox News national security strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. You know, Dr. Gorka, when we first met, you always said ISIS can be defeated. Look at where we are now.
Right.
You know, unless this president bows and tries to bribe Iranian mullahs and rogue murdering dictators, the press and the media will never like him. And the Democrats will never like, because that's the only policies they like.
Right.
Capitulation and appeasement.
That's the only legacy of the Obama administration.
Right.
Is getting in bed with the mullahs, releasing $150 billion with a B dollars to a regime that his State Department said was a terrorist financing regime.
He said to Congress, let's start undoing this. We don't get our money back, do we?
But look, this is what 12 months tells you. The Obama administration said ISIS is a generational threat, meaning your children, my grandchildren, are going to be fighting jihadis. Guess what? President Trump truncated a generation into 6 months. They are on the ropes, and the floor is being wiped with ISIS. That's what will to victory means, and that's what our soldiers being allowed to do their jobs, our Marines, our airmen, our Coast Guards.
Talked about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Look, what did we have tonight?
No rules of engagement.
What can you disagree with in tonight's speech? We had the Democrats sit down to safety, dignity. I mean, the words of tonight's speech were what?
Lowest unemployment. They couldn't even cheer that.
Dignity, right?
Yeah.
Giving the working men and women of America dignity back. Safety for all of us, from MS-13, gangbangers, you name it. And then lastly, pride.
Well
pride
said.
in our nation.
There was a lot of that tonight.
Oh, my gosh.
A lot of...
How do you reject that?
Dan.
I thought one of the most powerful moments of the speech was watching members of the Congressional Black Caucus sit on their cabooses and their butts while the President of the United States is celebrating the lowest black level of unemployment we've seen in decades.
And Hispanic.
You know what?
No. Ever.
And the greatest untapped resource in this country right now are the citizens left behind in cities run by liberal Democrats running these cities into the damn ground. Baltimore, St. Louis, and the fact that this president, that the Democrats hate so much, has driven black unemployment down so low to historic levels, and they sat on their butts and did nothing.
How powerful is it that the president got to lay out a year of success after 8 years of failure, bypass a media that just hates him, go directly to the American people and say, this is what we've done in a year, and this is what we're going to do in the next year?
And what's the response? I mean, this is the cherry on top of the sundae. The response is an angry Kennedy ranting at us. I mean, we've got the Clinton cult ran down our throat. Yeah. She loses.
What was up with that makeup? I mean, that was weird.
And then they want to put the Kennedy cult in? I mean, they have no idea.
We're going back in time. And by the way, John Kennedy, President Kennedy, was very different than Ted Kennedy.
And President Kennedy would not be allowed into the Democratic Party today. That's the bottom line.
Last word, Dan.
Yeah, no, I think he's right. The Democrat bench is thin. I mean, you got Uncle Bernie, you got a bunch of redistributionists and socialists.
Crazy Uncle Joe on the sidelines. You got, what is he, Senator Warren, Pocahontas. We got it all.
There's no sixth man award there. That bench is light, I'm telling you right now.
Good to see you both. Thank you for being with us. All right, when we come back, the one and only 999, Herman Cain in the house, and Joe Concha straight ahead. All right, joining us now from the Hill, we have Joe Concha and Fox News contributor, Mr. What? I love the hat. Tell everybody what you just said to me when you walk on the set.
I'm wearing my hat because I have less hair than Sean Hannity. So he can get away with not wearing a hat.
Well, it is literally 30 below zero. I don't know whose bright idea at Fox was like, oh, let's put everybody out in the freezing cold.
On a roof.
We have a fake background like this, and there's no point. And everybody that's working here is saying the same thing.
Exactly.
Oh, you were in the gallery.
I was in the gallery, and it was my first time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, because when you're actually there, you can not only see the electricity, you can feel the electricity. And the other thing that I was able to do by being in the gallery, reading the body language of the Democrats
and
the Congressional Black Caucus, there were a couple of dreamers sitting near me. And I noticed something. When Melania walked in, they sat down. And I'm going, that wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
And throughout President Trump's entire speech with all of the accomplishments, all of the strategies that he talked about, they never stood, they never applauded. I wanted to know, why did they come?
I don't know.
You know, and then
I thought they embarrassed. We have the lowest unemployment.
Yes, in history.
In history for Black America, for Hispanic America. Thank God. Thank God.
Yes.
Let me go to Joe. Joe, look, you cover the media. Let me ask you, I'm watching, we're putting up the list of accomplishments. The president goes direct to the American people. And I'm thinking, you know what? This is a powerful moment because with all of their hours and all of their minutes, guess what? He made a strong case tonight, and I'm betting the ratings are probably going to be through the roof, and a lot of people have literally said, wow, I didn't know all this, because nobody in the media tells them, except maybe me. A few others.
Well, Sean, you're going to see an audience tomorrow, probably anywhere between 45 and 50 million people. Obviously, that's a lot of people. That's even more than when he was sworn in about a year ago. But as you know, television is a visual medium, and your guests have pointed this out. On one side of the chamber, you had optimism. You had the president. You had a president with the wind at his back in terms of economy, in terms of jobs, in terms of military successes against ISIS. And on the other side, as your guests have pointed out, you had Democrats sitting on their hands when higher wages are bought up. And for folks in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, where election was decided in 2016, the reason why Trump won by 10,000 votes and 40,000 votes and 22,000 votes in those states was because people there, the independents, not the partisans, said, what are you going to do for me to make my life better? Donald Trump had a message around the economy and jobs. Hillary Clinton was, well, that guy sucks, and vote for me because I'm a woman. And that got replayed again tonight in real time between the resistance and the guy who is touting his accomplishments, and it was a very powerful thing to watch on television.
At the end of the day, Herman Cain, I think if we keep creating jobs and people have more opportunity and they get more money back and there's less government bureaucracy and we're safe and secure, I think all this noise we've been hearing from everybody isn't going to mean a darn thing in the end.
You're absolutely right. We are going to save the savable. Now, some of those people sitting in the audience, some of the Democrats and some of the Congressional Black Caucus who wouldn't stand, I don't think some of those people are savable. And I came to a conclusion.
What is it?
TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, is no longer a sickness, it's a mental disorder.
All right, guys, good to see you.
You too, buddy.
I'm borrowing that hat.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, more Hannity right after the break. All right, as we wrap up in the sewer, the swamp, Washington, D.C., that's all the time we have left. As always, we do thank you for being with us. And don't forget, this show will always be fair and balanced. We will never be the Destroy Trump media. We are back to pushing release the memo. We might see it as early as tomorrow. Not, we hope, on Thursday. Now, let not your heart be troubled. Fox News continuing coverage of the president's first State of the Union address. Laura Ingraham. It is 12 degrees out here.
Well, I'm not a fool
and we're
like
outside,
you sitting out on the roof.
And you're in the comfort of a warm studio, and I want to know who's the bright light executive that made this idiotic decision.
Well, Hannity,
and everybody's laughing because they're like free. No, but they were all frozen out here.
I heard you did little peppermint schnapps and hot chocolate. That was so nice. You put a little checkered picnic cloth out. Yeah, that was very sweet of you to your staff. Loved it.
I guarantee you, whoever that executive is asleep right now as we get out of here. Take it away in the heat of the studio that you have over there.
All right, don't call my town a swamp, okay? That's only Trump can do that. All right, good to see you, Sean. And welcome to this late hour edition of the Ingraham Angle.